Okay, there's two different NFL stories. I'm going to go with this. They both revolve around injuries. Let's start with the news of the day. Stop me if you heard this before, but Mike Williams is hurt. Now, the injury is worse than we thought. We thought it was back spasms. Turns out he's got a small fracture in his back. Now, look, you can play and live and you'd be fine with a fracture in your back. Like, it sounds really bad, but we don't know where the fracture is, how big it is. We don't know anything other than he's not getting on the plane and traveling with the Chargers to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And despite what anyone else, Colin, has said about Jacksonville, normally not a great environment, but recently incredible. Incredible. Like Jacksonville, it looked like a college football environment, right? It's kind of a college football area. That was a snake pit going back to their win over Tennessee. Now, they still needed a great strip sack, fumble, recovery, run back for a touchdown to beat the Titans, who were starting Josh Dobbs in his second start ever. But they did win the game. It was a great atmosphere. And that defensive front's nasty. They got a lot of dudes. And though Trevor Lawrence missed on some throws, like, he's been good this year. Travis Etienne, obviously, we remember him in college. Dynamic two-way back. Like, it's a pretty good team and one that kicked your ass last time around. But this is one of those deals where you can, if the Chargers, and I don't know how I feel about the idea of firing him, right? Because, the argument for him is, hey, he made the playoffs despite all of their injuries, and they got better as the season went on. Like, that's a pretty strong argument. I can't really argue against it. But being a head coach is really about two or three things. Okay? The first is, will the guys play for you? And I would say that you go back and look at week 18 last year and the loss to the Raiders, those guys are playing their butts off for him. You look at how they've played this year, they've played their butts off for him. Right? It hasn't always been good, but they figured it out and they have played for him. So it'd be really hard. You make the playoffs, you win 10 games, you have all these injuries, and they're still playing hard. But the other part to it is being a head coach is about managing people. Okay? Managing people. You're managing them. In many ways, the head coach in football should be called a manager, much the way it's called a manager in baseball. Because you're managing egos, you're managing a coaching staff, you're managing injuries, you're managing your roster. And I'm sorry, but playing Mike Williams at all, let alone play Mike Williams as long as they played him, that's gross roster mismanagement. It just is. And you can say, like, what are the chances? Well, it's Mike Williams. He gets hurt often. It's the NFL. It's a wide receiver. Like, if it's your right guard, like, what are we really going to do? We're trying to protect Justin Herbert, trying to get through our stuff. If it's Corey Linsley, you're like, he missed some time earlier, but generally not hurt. Mike Williams is hurt relatively often, right? Like, he got hurt his first year in college football. You guys remember he ran into the goalpost and badly hurt his neck and nearly never played football again? I don't know how many people remember that. Like, he's been a little bit snake bit with some injuries. Like, what are the chances? I have not seen any high-level player run into a goalpost since. There's a little bit of, like, bad luck, dude. Right? But, man, this one, it feels like roster management, and it feels like with Sean Payton doing all these, doing a couple of interviews and still not committing to definitely wanting to come back and coach, he's just laying out there waiting to see that job comes open because they have good players. It just feels like some mismanagement. We'll see on that one. We'll make our picks on that game a little bit later. And then you have the tweet, which was supposed to settle everything. That's when Lamar Jackson, he took to Twitter yesterday because we, just like everybody else, were wondering, and me personally, I guess Jason Stewart's giving me credit for this, for pointing out something that others had wondered maybe hadn't said aloud, which is I understand Lamar Jackson's hurt, but couldn't he be playing right now? It also was compounded by the fact that John Harbaugh was offering nothing in terms of a true update, what he was actually dealing with, the likelihood of returning, where he was in rehab. Here's Lamar Jackson on Twitter. This is LJ_ERA. That's era 8. Quote, thank you, everyone, for your support and concerns regarding my injuries. Does that feel sarcastic to everybody else, right?
No doubt.
Right. Thank you. Anyway, I want to give you all the update as I'm in the recovery process. I suffered a PCL grade 2 sprain on the borderline of a strain 3. It should be a borderline of a grade 3, but we know what we're talking about. There's still inflammation surrounding my knee, and my knee remains unstable. I'm in good spirits as I continue with treatments on the road to recovery. I wish I could be out there with my guys more than anything. I can't give 100% of myself to my guys and fans. I'm still hopeful we have a chance. Okay, so does that settle it for you, Jason Stewart?
Does it settle it for me as far as, like, do I now not think that the contract is the reason he's missing these games? No, I think finally somebody got into his ear, whether it was your guy Chad Steele or whatever. It's like, dude, a lot of people, a lot of fans are calling you into question about this. You should probably address this. I think that's what that was. And that first sentence wasn't thanks for your concern. It was, how dare you question my injury? I don't think it was how dare you. I just think it was, hey, I know you're all concerned because, again, there's not the same level of concern. It's we're very much in football mode, which is like, why isn't Lamar out there? I think the argument is like, okay, I understand you're not 100%. I got it. But what percent are you? Now, his knee remaining unstable, that part says to me like, okay, you're not ready to play. If you don't think your knee is stable, you shouldn't be playing in the NFL. And you have to factor in that he does not have a contract beyond this year, although the Ravens will most assuredly franchise him. I guess the other question would be like, well, if Steve Bisciotti goes in and meets with Lamar Jackson and he says, hey, man, listen, if you go out and play this weekend, regardless of how you play, I'm going to give you $250 guaranteed. Whatever they gave to Sean, I'll give you $1 more. Would you play? And if the answer is yes, then you have yourself a problem. Right? If the answer is I'd love to do it, I just can't do it, then you don't. And I'm going to take this moment to not question the validity of it. Do I think would I love to see him give it a go? Yeah. When he said unstable, that's the part where I'm like, I get it, dude. You're not. If it doesn't feel right, like, it's a really hard one. But I guess this really comes down to if he had a long-term guaranteed contract, would he be out there? Would he be out there? I know your answer, Jason. You think it's an absolutely yes. I don't know Lamar well enough. I don't know the situation. I really struggle to. Because I think he wanted to sit out and make a point until the playoffs. Although that was the thing, like, man, I ain't going back out there 100%. It's not for a playoff game when I don't have a contract. Now it's the playoffs, like, I'm ready to go. But he's not ready to go. Ramos, where are you on this?
I think he's hurt. And I think he's just taking his time to come back. I don't think it has anything to do with the contract. I just think he wants to play. He looks like a guy who wants to play. He likes playing for the Ravens. I just feel like it's just the injury. It's taking time, and he'll be out there as soon as he can.
Mm-hmm. And Jay Stu, you're not buying it at all.
You know me, Doug. I'm about content. Him having a legitimate injury, and this is just about him having an injury that isn't healing well, that's not interesting content. There's too much smoke around this fire, though. I mean, you were out in front of it, but a lot of industry people have picked up on this story, and it's leaked into the fan base. So there's just something else here. I think that was your original point. Something's going on.
Yeah. I mean, again, I thought that something that was going on was that he was
making a point of, I ain't playing 100% for a team that's not with me 100%. And look, there is that 100% number in there. Well, what percentage of healthy are you? Like, this is my only question is, if the owner of the Ravens, I think it's Steve Bisciotti is his name, if he walks in and says, Lamar, here's $250 million guaranteed, 5 years, no cut contract, but you got to play this weekend. If he would say, yes, I play for that contract, then I got an issue. I do. So, but I'm going to take him at his word when I hear unstable. And look, if it's still swollen, I get it, man. You know,